I call to order this regular meeting of the Township Committee of the Township of Morris this Wednesday, October 19th, 2022. The time is now 7 p.m. Mr. Quinn, may I please have a roll call?
Sir. Mr. Ravitz.
Present.
Mr. Mancuso will be absent. Mrs. Wilson.
Here.
Mr. Guariglia.
Here.
Mayor Gyorfy.
Here. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag
of the
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. The first item on our agenda this evening is the approval of the minutes of the September Township Committee meeting. May I please have a motion to approve the minutes from September 19th, 2022 for both regular and closed?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, proclamations. We have one proclamation on this evening's agenda honoring the Morris School District's 50th anniversary. We will not be presenting this tonight. It will be presented at a later date, but Deputy Mayor Wilson, did you want to provide any commentary on the proclamation?
I'll hold that until my Township Committee comments. That's okay.
No problem. Thank you very much. With that, we will move right into our first public comment and inquiry person, which is for inquiry session, which is for agenda items only. We have one member of the public here in person with us and 6 members of the public joining us online. We will open the public comment period. Please virtually raise your hand if you are online to indicate that you'd like to speak. Please state your name and address for the record before speaking. Please note that comments are limited to 5 minutes per speaker. If you have any questions you would like answered, your remaining time to speak will be yielded back for this purpose. With that, is there a motion to open the first public comment on agenda items only?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we'll open it up. I see one hand raised is on Zoom for Kathleen. So if we wanted to allow Kathleen to speak, the floor is yours.
Unmute.
Kathleen, you're muted. If you could unmute yourself.
Give it a little bit.
Yeah, that was a mistake. That was not, I do not have a question right now.
Okay, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Yes.
Lee Goldberg, see your hands raised.
Hi, good evening. Am I audible?
You
Yes.
are.
Okay, thank you. During this first public commentary, I just had some questions on the settlement agreement for 257 Mount Campbell. And
Could you state your address for the record too, Mr. Goldberg?
Sure, sorry, 10 Arrowhead Road.
Thank you.
And before I speak, I just want to also disclose that I am a current member of the zoning board here in Morris Township. I consulted with the board attorney, Rich Aller, this morning about commenting and speaking on this topic here at the meeting tonight, and he had assured me that there was no conflict, given that there's nothing in front of our board currently on this topic. But I was just wondering, I was surprised to see this appear in the agenda, and wondering if you could just give us an overview of how we got here, and also I have some questions on the Exhibit A and Exhibit B that are referenced in the settlement agreement, and whether those documents are available online for review or to the public.
Certainly. Did Mr. Cantor or Mr. Quinn want to comment to provide?
I mean, I can start, Mr. Goldberg, and I certainly have no objection to asking any questions tonight. So from what I understand, that I got involved late as I was appointed this year, there was a vote of the planning board, and litigation ensued. That litigation was put on hold so the parties could get together and work on a settlement agreement. I understand that the township and its professionals worked very hard on this agreement, and there was a lot of back and forth. And ultimately, the terms were agreed to that there would be a rezoning of the property to allow for 4 single-family homes on that property. That'll be done by ordinance if this resolution were to pass. And there's also going to be open space land, which the township can purchase for $175,000. Those are the general terms, but I'm happy to answer any other specific questions. And I know, obviously, Mr. Quinn can answer some questions as well.
Certainly.
And just to clarify, it's the zoning board, not the planning
Sorry,
board.
I apologize. I apologize.
Correct, yeah, so on the zoning board and as a member of the zoning board and having voted on both the denial of the initial application, then also a denial of the proposed settlement, when I read the settlement agreement, it looks like basically the terms of the settlement agreement are for the 4 houses, which is sort of what the land use board at the zoning board level sort of denied. So I'm just trying to understand how, from a process procedure, is this a case of sort of the township committee overruling its own land use board, or how should I interpret that, or the public interpret that?
I wouldn't say it that way, Mr. Goldberg. I think that the township's taking a more holistic approach, and they feel this is better overall for the township with the inclusion of the open space land. Also, the consistency of these properties with the neighborhood, the limited density on this property. I think that the township is looking at this from a township perspective, and not as an overruling of your board.
Okay, and then in
Also to avoid litigation and litigation costs, which is, a concern for this township as well.
Sure, thank you. In the settlement agreement itself, it references Exhibit A and Exhibit B, Exhibit A being the concept plan, Exhibit B being the actual ordinance itself. Are those available for review by the public?
The concept plan is available, sir.
Where is it available? Online?
It is in the clerk's office.
Can that be made available online, or does should an OPA request be made, or?
I would recommend an OPA request on that, sir. Most of the times what we post up is the resolutions from the meeting, but the supporting documentation can be obtained through an OPA request.
Okay, and the Exhibit B of the ordinance itself, is that ordinance already drafted and created, or does that exist?
That's still being drafted, Mr. Goldberg.
So that does not exist at this point in time. Okay, thank you very much. I do also notice in the settlement agreement, I don't know if Mr. Slade is in the room or someone from engineering, but there is a mention of the sewer allocation. It's not referenced, or it is referenced in the agreement. I was just wondering, is there a current sewer line that is available there? Was Mr. Slade in the room?
Mr. Slate's not here, but Mr. Quinn may be
I
able
can
to
answer that, Mr. Goldberg. There is adequate sewer service and water service for the project.
Okay, so the sewer allocation referenced in the settlement agreement is just as sort of a backstop, just in case, or?
It's just that we will be able to provide them with sewer service and water for the project.
Okay, great. And then my last question is, will the developer be making any contributions to our affordable housing fund as part of the settlement agreement?
Yes, he will. He's required to by our ordinance and also by state statute.
Do we already know how much that amount is?
No, we do not, because it'll be based on the cost of construction.
Okay, and does there need to be language in the settlement agreement that references this, or is that outside the scope of the settlement agreement language and terms?
It's covered by ordinance and state statute, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, so so you guys would be, I'm assuming, voting on the resolution tonight, is that correct?
Yes, we'll be voting on the resolution this evening.
This evening, okay. And then the intention is this goes to the planning board. And are you only looking for, I noticed in the settlement agreement, it just references looking for any comments from the planning board. Is there any, will the planning board have any sort of teeth to do their land use planning on this? Or is this sort of taking away any of that, the settlement agreement taking away any of that activity that they might engage in?
So Mr. Goldberg, tonight we're only voting on the settlement agreement itself. The next meeting will be introducing the zoning ordinance if this resolution is passed, and then that will be referred for consistency.
Right, normal process.
And that would be the normal process.
Right,
And then if and when introduced in November, the public hearing would be at the December meeting.
Okay. And thank you very much for clarifying that. My last question, I know I'm running out of time, is when we went through our zoning board of adjustment process on this original application, there was some talk about, this parcel was, I think back in 2006 or 7, rezoned it as OSGU, and there was some unclarity as to why that was, and there was some talk about this particular piece of tract of land not being preferable or usable for affordable housing, and tying in with the master plan element. Is there any clarity that can be provided around that? What happened back in 2006 or 7? Anyone can speak to that? Because it was a little unclear at the time.
Mr. Goldberg, this piece of property was originally looked at by the township when we were going through a previous stage of COA, and it had been zoned at that time for, I believe it was TH5, which would allow 25 units to the acre. And back then, as we were compliant, the township committee took the action to change the zoning on that from the TH5 to the OSGU.
Thank you very much, Mr. Quinn. That's helpful and good information. I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I did, we sat through about 30 hours of testimony on this application. So I'd be, if the township committee members are going to be voting on this resolution tonight, I'll just remain hopeful that they have access to the steep slope information, which was a part and major reason for the denial of this application, and that you guys feel that you're in the best decision to rule on this. So thank you for your time and attention on it.
Thank you, Mr. Goldberg. Appreciate the thorough and informed questions. I see Amanda Wilberg with her hand raised. Amanda, if you can just state your name and address for the record. Give it a few more seconds. Amanda, if you are talking, we can't hear you. You are unmuted. Okay. Amanda, we can't hear you. If you would like to comment, there is a second public comment portion at the end of the meeting, and we'll try you again then. And then I also see Kathleen's hand raised again. I just don't know if Kathleen wants to speak or not, but we'll give it a shot.
Yeah, I do. I'm Kathleen Pitt. I live at 206 Mount Kimball Avenue. I guess I'm utterly baffled and confused how this got back on approval when, as Lee Goldberg had mentioned, we went through 30 hours of, meeting after meeting. And my understanding, it was in the best interest of the township to not put these first 11 condos and then 4 homes up based on steep slope variance. And I've lived on Mount Kimball for almost how long? 25 years. And I can't see how 4 houses on that steep slope it makes any sense from not only just an environmental standpoint, but a water runoff standpoint, and what's going to be going on with the lighting for a place like that, who's going to manage, things like that, as well as like trying to get down driveways in the winter. I mean, you'd have to live on Mount Kimball to know how treacherous the people that are across the street from me, because I'm on the opposite side of the street, how incredibly difficult that is and how dangerous it is. I have friends that live on the street that have flipped their cars in order to not go out on Mount Kimball, and crashed twice into walls because they could not stop and they have their driveway professionally, plowed. So it just is, I guess I just really can't get my head around how we can spend all these very, all this dedicated time for both parties and come to a decision, and then all of a sudden it just gets tossed out the window. How can you explain that to me? I mean, other than we just decided it's in the best interest, when all these other meetings it was determined that it was not in the best interest. What flipped the switch here?
I mean, Mayor, I don't have much else to add other than, we do have the open space. It is the developer is building the township a parking lot. to access the trails. There'll be a new trailhead access, which is a benefit to the township. That was negotiated for benefit as part of the settlement. The developer was going to move forward with litigation, had filed a complaint, and would continue to pursue a legal path. And this was recommended as a settlement in the best interest of the township to end litigation.
But you could have, but why wasn't a lower number of houses put in the best interest of the township? That's number one. Number two, so my tax dollars are going to pay for a parking lot for a trailhead that's barely used, right? It happens to be barely used. Most people are going to drive up.
By the developer, it wouldn't be tax dollars.
So the developer is going to pay for the parking lot
as part of this agreement.
Correct.
as part of the agreement. Okay, and did anybody do any study on how many people are actually going to use this going to use this as a trailhead? Because most people are going to go up to the lot where the bathroom is, or they're going to go to the one that's off on Tempewick. I mean, it doesn't seem that well thought out. Was there any study on how many people access that particular trailhead? And how many car spots are there on that trailhead? How many carports are there?
There would be approximately 5. As you know, currently there is no there is no dedicated access to the trailhead that exists now, and folks would have to park on the street or down Frederick. Acquiring 3 acres of open space for the township as part of the settlement was
no, you're saying acquiring, actually you're losing open space as a result of this settlement. Don't twist it around like you're acquiring it. We're losing it.
We will be acquiring 3 acres of land that would not be able to be developed at any time in the future by adding it to the Rossi through this settlement.
We would rather have the land just be the way it is.
We understand that, and I would agree, but unfortunately, it's not realistic based on the current litigation we're undergoing, and that's why we came up with the settlement agreement to try to come up with the best terms for the township.
And why weren't less houses proposed?
That was part of the settlement negotiation. This was a number that was agreed upon.
So, and we can continue to discuss this once the ordinance is introduced and we have a public hearing on the ordinance for zoning in December. So I know your time is running up, but we can absolutely continue this conversation as we move forward.
Okay, so basically anybody just threatens to sue can overturn anything that is in the best interest of the township. Is that what I'm hearing? Anybody that just bullies in with a lawsuit, it's like, who cares about the residents? We got a guy that's got money and a lawsuit. Who cares about what the residents want? I mean, come on. Really, who are you working for here?
The governing body feels strongly that in order for us to get out of litigation and to try to keep cohesiveness on Mount Campbell Avenue, it would be best to rezone this property to be consistent with the rest of Mount Campbell Avenue, which is what the ordinance will in fact do after we agree to the settlement agreement. It would rezone the property to RH15. Single family homes are along Mount Campbell Avenue. Other parts of Mount Campbell Avenue outside of our jurisdiction in Morristown are not RH15. They have high density properties there. So we felt that it's best in our best interest to keep a cohesive nature to Mount Campbell Avenue, and protecting 3 acres of this property in perpetuity as open space and being able to convert it to trailheads, we thought was a net benefit for the township.
Yes, but from someone that's sitting here that lives on Mount Campbell, it seems like anybody that screams lawsuit, all these things that you're saying now could be turned on their head a year from now. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Because basically what you're saying now was said to us before about this little now open. It doesn't make any sense. There's no teeth to this. Like, you're just bending over for a guy who's throwing in a parking lot because he wants to build 4 houses.
Well, we can continue this conversation, and I'd be happy to talk with you offline. But we have to get back to the meeting. We're 5 minutes now, so we're definitely open to communicating with you more. And I understand and appreciate your concerns.
Thanks. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further hands raised, is there a motion to close the first public portion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have 2 ordinances for introduction on tonight's agenda. Mr. Quinn, if you could please read the title of the, or I'm sorry, Mr. Cantor, if you could please read the title of the first ordinance into the record.
Yes, Mayor. Ordinance 2222 is an ordinance amending Chapter 398 Residential Property, Article 1, Certificate of Continued Occupancy, Sections 398.1 through 398.6 of the Code of Ordinances of the Township of Morris.
May I please have a motion to approve ordinance number 22-22 on first reading and schedule for a second reading at the regular Township Committee meeting on November 9, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions from the committee before we vote? Hearing none, Mr. Kuhn, may we please have a roll call?
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Guariglia,
Yes.
Mayor Gyorfy.
Yes.
Mayor, the ordinance is introduced and public hearing will be at the next regular scheduled meeting of the governing body on November 9th.
Thank you, Mr. Cantor. And I will turn it over to Deputy Mayor Wilson for the second ordinance of the night.
Thank you. Next up is ordinance number 2322. Mr. Cantor, would you mind reading that into the record, please?
Sure. Deputy Mayor, ordinance 2322 is an ordinance reappropriating $319,877,000 proceeds of obligations not needed for their original purposes in order to provide for other purposes in and by the Township of Morris.
Mr. Quinn, you want to comment briefly on what this ordinance does, please?
Yes, ma'am. This is funds that the township has on hand from, we had put away for the purchase of fire apparatus. Also, we had purchased some fire apparatus and $119,000 was not needed for that purchase. One of the things that the fire department has been doing, instead of spending $600,000 to $700,000 to buy a new fire truck, we're getting them refurbished and adding 10, 15 years of life to the current trucks we have at a much reduced cost for the refurbished. So we've done it already and it's worked out successfully, and we'd like to continue to do that to keep the costs down by taking the current apparatus, refurbishing it rather than buying brand new apparatus.
Great, thank you. Can I have a motion to pass on first read ordinance 23-22?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Deputy Mayor, we need a roll call.
We need a roll call. Okay. Mr. Quinn, could you do the roll call, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Guariglia,
Yes.
Mayor Gyorfy, abstain.
Abstain.
Deputy Mayor, ordinance 2322 is introduced. There'll be a public hearing at the next regular scheduled meeting of the governing body on November 9th.
Great,
Okay.
Thank you. Back to you, Mayor.
Appreciate it. Resolutions, we have 22 resolutions on tonight's agenda. I believe we will be stripping resolution number 220 for a separate vote. So then can I just have a motion to approve resolutions 202-22 through 219-22 and along with 223-22?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi. Mayor, did
Okay,
you say
so-
221 and 222? I didn't hear that.
So we're reading resolutions 202 through 219 and 221 through 223 together. So now we need a motion to approve those resolutions, all but 220-22.
Correct, I thought, okay.
Do you want another vote or you're good?
Yeah, so,
I thought we just did that.
Can you repeat yourself, Kathy?
Well, I did not hear 221 and 222. I heard 223, but it came across to me like 221 and 222 were missing, but they're not.
Yeah, so for clarification, the next motion will be to approve all the resolutions on the agenda except for 220-22.
Right.
Okay. So may I have a motion to approve those resolutions in one motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then now can we have a roll call vote on that vote, please?
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Guariglia,
Yes.
Mayor Gyorfy.
Yes. All right, and now we will have a separate vote on Resolution 220-22, authorizing the execution of the settlement agreement between the Township of Morris and 257 Mount Campbell LLC.
Motion second.
So is there a motion to vote on this resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mayor, do you
Wait, are we
wanna
going
be-
to have discussion of it, Mayor?
We can
make any
if we
comments?
want. Sure.
I would like to make a couple of comments. My comment is that this settlement agreement does override the decision that was made by the board of the zoning board. And serving on the planning board myself, I know how much goes into the decisions that are part of a land use board decision. And I personally myself feel a need for more information, more detail about the reasoning the zoning board utilized in making their decisions. It's my understanding they voted twice to deny first the original proposal and then another time to deny the settlement proposal. And before I cast a vote on this resolution, I feel a need myself to have more detail about the reasons for their vote. So my vote on this resolution is going to be abstain.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wilson. Any other comments from the committee? I will just speaking for myself, I feel that this, did you want to speak?
No, go ahead. You go first, Mayor.
Thank you. In my opinion, I think this is in the best interest of the township. It's the most realistic alternative. And I think there is a net gain for the township. It's incredibly important to keep a cohesive structure to Mount Campbell Avenue, and adding single family homes, in my opinion, does that on a roadway full of single family homes. I would also think preserving open space and adding it to the ROSI, the Register of Open Spaces, to prevent further development down the road is a net benefit for the township. And it is a net benefit for our Parks and Recreation Department and our Parks and Recreation facilities, and which is why I'm supporting the resolution.
So my comments on this also are after researching and going back and actually walking the property. I feel too that this is the best realistic option. It's best for the street. It's best for us keeping some open space. So I'll be voting to approve.
Mayor.
Mr. Ravitz.
I'd like to just echo the comments from my associates here on the dais. This is in the best interest of the town. This is actually a very good deal for all the residents of the town for all the reasons that the mayor had pointed out. So I too am going to be in support of this. Again, it's because it benefits all the residents of the town. It adds to our ability to utilize the trail systems and for passive recreation, and being on the Parks and Rec committee. That's something that we certainly will covet here in the town. So adding 3 acres of open space is something that again will benefit the town. 4 houses is in keeping with the look and feel of Mount Campbell inside the township. So for the most part, this is probably the best deal that we're going to get, and I'm going to vote in favor of it.
Thank you, Mr. Ravitz. May I have a roll call vote, please, Mr. Quinn?
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Abstain.
Ms. Guariglia,
Yes.
Mayor Gyorfy.
Yes. Moving on to the next item of our agenda is the consent calendar. We have 7 items on the consent calendar this evening. May I please have a motion to approve the 7 items on the consent calendar now?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Consideration of monthly reports. We have received reports from the Fire Department, Joint Court, and Police Department for August 2022. We have received reports from the Fire Department, Joint Court, Library, Police, and Tax Collector for September 2022. May I please have a motion to approve these monthly reports?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Claims for payment. The total amount of bills and vouchers for this meeting is $10,015,948.30. As a reminder, we are also the tax collector for the school district, the library, and the county of Morris. May I have a motion to approve the list of bills and vouchers, please?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Quinn, a roll call vote for that, please.
Mr. Ravitz,
Yes.
Ms. Wilson,
Yes.
Ms. Guariglia,
Yes.
Mayor Gyorfy.
Yes. Next item on our agenda is standing committee reports and commentary from the Township Committee. And I will open it up to Deputy Mayor Wilson. If you'd like to go first, since you're remote,
Sure.
we'll give you the first shot.
Okay, thank you. So for my standing committee reports, I'm just going to talk about one main topic, which is our sustainable Jersey, and it sort of addresses environment, transportation, and our seniors committee. So I would like to let you know that we did accomplish the bronze level certification. We got notified by Sustainable Jersey about a week ago. And what this means is that it's a public recognition of our efforts. We're really proud of it. It's a recognition of our accomplishments to date. It puts us in the company of about 220 other towns in New Jersey who have shown by our actions, our commitment to sustainability. And it also opens up new grant possibilities for us. So our next steps on this are, number one, we will be publicizing our certification after the League of Municipalities conference. We're going to get our official notification or recognition there by Sustainable Jersey. And after that, we'll be publicizing it in the press and on our township communication media. Also on ongoing actions, the certification, this bronze, is good for 3 years, but we will continue to do Sustainable Jersey actions and use their information as a guide to, to assist us in doing various actions, many of which we're already planning, but we will use Sustainable Jersey guidance for best practices. So a couple of examples there. Our transportation committee was planning to do bike and walk plans. Sustainable Jersey has guidance for how kind of best practice for doing that. We also have a trails plan already in existence. So we're going to pull together our information into plans that hopefully should earn us additional Sustainable Jersey points. There's also another action, community designed for all ages. That's where we got points for our senior citizens committee, newly established this year. There's a lot of actions within that category that we'll be looking at. One we're definitely planning to do, we will get points for, is the survey that they're already working on. Sustainable Jersey gives points and guidance on complete streets policies. We're looking at that as well. And our goal is for the transportation committee to work with our professionals and hopefully develop a written complete streets policy for next year. And there will be work on grants. And I also wanted to just kind of give a heads up to the governing body that the green team is renewed every year by a resolution of the governing body. And this year we just had 3 members on, and we basically focused our work on obtaining the certification. So now that we've got that, we're going to expand our work to more kind of a visionary feel. And so the EC will be discussing their recommendations for expanding the green team, which will come up to the governing body. So just wanted to mention that. I also wanted to make a few comments about the school district proclamation we had. I am so proud to live in a community that supports the kind of school system we have. Our school system was created by a New Jersey Supreme Court decision 50 years ago that led to mandated integration of the schools in Morristown and Morris Township. Our success with integration is not the rule, it's the exception. And our school system is widely regarded as a role model for others across our state and across our nation. The success that our school system has does not happen by chance. It only happens when you get the kind of active and sort of passionate community support for your school system that we have in our community. On September 30th, there was a reception held at the library to celebrate the 50-year anniversary of the merger. Hundreds of people were there, and the energy was really incredible. And for me, it was just a truly unforgettable insight into why our school system is so successful. It's the support of our community. And I just want to congratulate the school system on the 50-year anniversary and thank our community for offering the kind of support that makes the truly unique success of our school system possible. I also wanted to just quickly mention that there was several really fun community events over the last month. The Festival of Books, I thought, was fantastic this year. And for anyone who hasn't been, I definitely encourage you to check it out. It brings readers and writers together. There's book talks, and the writers of the books are in touch with their readers. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm very glad that our community offers. It's an unusual festival, and I really enjoyed it. And it says, again, a lot about the type of community we live in, and I'm very grateful for that. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Mrs. Guariglia, would you like to go next?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Right before I start, though, I do want to say that I do sit on the Environmental Committee, and I want to congratulate Committeewoman Kathy Wilson and the Green Team on attaining the bronze level of sustainable Jersey. And there is nobody who is more dedicated than Kathy Wilson to getting this done. So kudos to her and congratulations.
Thank you.
I'll start with the Department of Public Works updates. Leaf collection has begun. The township is divided into 3 different sectors. You can locate your street on the calendar sent the first year of the year or the website. We will post on the website and send a municipal messenger to alert residents the sector that we'll be working in. Residents can expect 4 to 5 pickups between now and mid-December. Please only put the leaves on the curb and not on the pavement or near the storm drains. Please do not put out brush, logs, or limbs. Large metal and appliance pickup is scheduled for the week of 10/24. Please call 973-326-7398 or complete the form on the DPW page of the website for a collection. There is some sad news from DPW. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the family and friends of retired DPW foreman Jim Miller, who was killed in a motorcycle accident this past weekend in South Carolina. Jim was the longtime DPW employee who retired in 2012. His son, Paul, is an employee with the DPW. Please keep them in your prayers. For fire, daylight savings time is November 6th. Remember to change the batteries in all your smoke detectors. There's no report for sewer or infrastructure. So as far as my commentary, in a short period of time, I've been able to attend several events, and the fall is always a great time to get out and take part in all the activities the township has to offer. Stopping by farmers markets, sporting events, all kinds of festivals reinforces what a great town we have, and it's nice to see the residents truly are participating. I did attend the first annual community festival to combat bias, hate, and violence held by the Morris County Prosecutor's Office. Morris County Prosecutor Robert Carroll said, "This festival, the first of its kind in our county, is an expansion of the Morris County Prosecutor Officer's school presentation program on these topics, and our efforts to reach and educate those of all ages and backgrounds. It is our hope that through presentations and programs like this event, that collectively we can have a positive impact on our community and society as a whole." For future, I think it will be better attended. It was a little late notice, so it'll be nice to see future years having more people and families show up. I also attended the LGBTQ event celebrating National Coming Out Day. This was a community event to bridge the gap between law enforcement and the LGBT community. Morristown and Morris Township Police were in attendance. As we strive to ensure our community remains a welcoming place, it's important to take part in and start conversations with our neighbors, both in the township and around us, to open communication and become better supporters of a more diverse and inclusive environment. On a personal note, as part of my own continuing education, I'm attending the North American Finance Executive Summit to learn what we should be doing as leaders to stay informed of current financial developments. We have to embrace change as a catalyst to do more, especially with technology, because it is changing how we work, communicate, coordinate, and collaborate, especially in finance. Local government has challenges ahead with our current economy, and we want to make the best decisions possible with the least impact on our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Guariglia. Committeeman Ravitz.
Thank you, Mayor. Pleased to report that there's some new trees coming being planted in around Convent Station, so that's something nice for infrastructure. But as usual, I'll typically focus in on Parks and Rec because that's near and dear to a lot of people's heart. Morris Township annual trunk or treat is Saturday, October 29th at 1 p.m. on Dwyer Lane. There's still time to register your card to be able to give out candy. At dusk, there will be a family outdoor movie night at Ginty Field. We're going to be showing Addams Family 2 for kids and adults of all ages. And after the film, there'll be a bonfire with the fire department. The Morris Township Winter Program registration is open. Please visit the Parks and Rec website and sign up using Community Pass for the many offerings available. Earlier this month, there was a Parks and Rec Advisory Committee meeting that almost exclusively dealt with the pickleball court usage issues that are plaguing towns across the nation. I want to thank all the residents who came out to share their issues and concerns with the committee. From what I heard, township residents are divided on how they want to use the courts. Some like the open play concept, which is in keeping with the spirit of the game, and others want to be able to play with others of similar skills or amongst a group of people for an hour of play. To reduce the number of out-of-town players that are now using the courts, we will be instituting a yearly fee structure. No solution will solve all problems, nor will any solution make everyone happy. Unlike pool usage, where we know how many memberships we can sell, in this case, we know what we don't know, and we'll have to learn through empirical evidence how many people can use the courts during peak hours, and thus how many memberships we can sell. So, what we plan for 2023 season, which starts on January 1st, we will give our best effort to accommodate how residents want to use the courts, but won't fully know how our rules and procedures will work until peak season usage. And we will adjust the rules and procedures as we learn more. And that will bring me into my commentary. And I want to say good evening to everyone and thank you for your participation in our local community government. National politics may get all the spotlight, but it's what we do here locally that has the biggest economic and quality impact on our lives. Here we are again in election season in New Jersey, and so that will be the focus of my commentary this month. James McHenry was a Maryland delegate to the Constitutional Convention. On the page where McHenry records the events of the last day of the convention, September 18th, 1787, he wrote, "A lady asked Dr. Franklin, 'Well, doctor, what have we got, a republic or a monarchy?' Ben Franklin replied, 'A republic if you can keep it.' Over the last few months, I have introduced and the Township Committee has passed 2 pay-to-play legislation ordinances. In my commentary, I wanted the Township residents to know that their local government is not for sale, that we need to restore faith in government, and we're going to start that process right here. In keeping in that same spirit, I will comment only because there's no legislation that can be discussed, let alone passed, that restores citizens' faith in free and fair elections. In 1994, a losing candidate in California claimed, without evidence, he lost because of voter fraud, and thus began a conspiracy of major political party that unless their candidates win, the loss was because of voter fraud. It was exacerbated by foreign, that is, Russian influence, impugning the integrity of elections in order to destabilize our democracy. The attack on the integrity of U.S. elections culminated in the January 6th attempted coup. Before the just before the insurrection, 61 cases were brought, legal cases were brought for voter fraud over to various courts, and every one of them but one was thrown out based on merit. We've all watched police procedurals on TV and in movies. We know that authorities arrest and prosecute based on evidence. To continue to believe that elections have been stolen, knowing full well there's no evidence to back up such claims, is sheer folly. I struggle with the notion that some people who belong to a cult of personality party will gladly vote against their own self-interests, the interests of their family, friends, and neighbors, solely for the purpose of thinking they have owned the opposition. It makes no rational sense. I hate to break it to some people, but nobody feels owned. The idea of demonizing Americans who may look or think differently than them has taken solid root, and it puts the fate of our republic in the balance. There are now 199 candidates running for various offices throughout the nation that continue to spew the lie that elections aren't fair and the entire system is fraudulent. That should make all of us anxious. It strikes at the very heart of our republic, the legitimacy of our democracy, and flies in the face of the rule of law. Ignoring free and fair victories undermines our nation. It undermines the idea of the consent of the governed. I also urge residents to soundly reject the notion of fraudulent elections and those who claim such farce. Such candidates have shown they care nothing of governing or representing their constituents. They don't want to govern, they want to rule and control. The U.S. has periodically gone through severe tests of resiliency of our republican democracy, the Civil War and politics leading up to it, the 1889 coup in Wilmington, North Carolina, the Gilded Age of the robber barons, the rise of the trade unions, World War II, and now a cult of personality party. America came out of these challenges bruised and sometimes battered, but ultimately a stronger nation. And democracy will prevail once again. Our republic will survive, but only if we are good stewards of it like we were in 2020 when a record number of Americans voted. Stable democracies don't die through violent coups. They are either voted in either by misled or delusional public or through public apathy toward elections. We are told that every election is the most important one in our lifetime because it's true. Vote and be part of the solution. And as always, I like to end my commentary with the following. Let's not marginalize and demonize the people who have less political or economic power as some of us currently enjoy. Rather, let's face up to and stand up to those who continue to profit from our nation's division. Such profiteers are the source of the nation's problems. We have more in common than should ever divide us, but we have to talk with each other and not at each other. Amplifying misinformation and hateful rhetoric plays right into the hands of America's enemies. Lastly, let's remember that as you go about your business each and every day, just to be a good person. Be kind to all. Kindness goes a very long way. That's my take. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Ravitz. For my committee reports and general commentary, I first want to thank the public who came out to support Hillside in our annual Oktoberfest. We haven't had it in 3 years, and we had a tremendous turnout, even given the pretty foul weather that we were having with the remnants of the hurricane that came up. So I wanted to thank the general public for a huge turnout. The firefighters were incredibly appreciative. I was appreciative as a 15-year member of Hillside Hose Company. It was a big boost of morale for us. Coming up on November 11th is Veterans Day. And as many people know, we have veterans events in Morris Township and in Morristown, starting here at the municipal building and then ending on the green. This Veterans Day, we are encouraging the public to join us for the wreath laying with the veterans. It's the Veterans Memorial Day Association of Morristown and Morris Township. We will be providing transportation for residents wishing to join us starting at 7:45 a.m. We have light refreshments in the morning. And this is spurred because this Memorial Day was the first time I personally took part in going around to the memorials and laying the wreaths with the veterans. And it was, to me, a really noteworthy ceremony that I think is a lot of times overlooked by the general public or not even known. So we're partnering with the American Legion and our other veterans from the association to try to get the word out and get some more people to join us. It's a really moving ceremony. You go to across the town and township to cemeteries as well as monuments to honor those who served in the military. So that's at 7 a.m. or 7:45 a.m. on Veterans Day, followed by the 10 a.m. service here and 11 a.m. service at the Green. Another note I wanted to make is dealing with the planning board. At Monday's meeting, the planning board recognized two former members for their long time serving and the public on the planning board. The first was Jeremiah Lohman, who served for 16 years on the planning board. He was he has been a longtime resident of Morris Township. And 16 years is a long time to be on the planning board, meeting twice a month for most months out of the year, going through site plan reviews and things like that. So I just wanted to extend my appreciation to Jeremiah. And secondly, if you can't outdo 16 years yourself, Franz Winsker outdid him with 36 years of service to the planning board. And so I just wanted to thank them both. Franz, also a longtime resident, an outstanding member of the planning board who's dedicated so many hours away from family and friends or work to serve our township through this capacity. So I just wanted to extend my appreciation to both of those gentlemen. For the legislation standing committee, a few items. Number one, as I've talked about for the past year, we are advocating to the state legislature to pass a bill introduced by Senators Bucco and Cryan, and now in the Assembly by Assemblywoman Dunn and Assemblyman McKeon, to expand the land use notification requirement from 10 days to 21 days. For those who don't know about it, a lot of times, especially with land use applications, the statutory requirement is for an applicant to give 10 days notice through mail, which means 10 days prior to the hearing, they have to mail out the notice. A lot of times that notice goes unread, it gets delivered late, or shows up the day of, and I think everyone agrees, more informed public will provide for more informed questioning at land use hearings, whether it's at the planning board, the zoning board, et cetera. So the legislation we're advocating for and is now introduced is to expand that to 21 days. Mr. Ravitz and I are reaching out to local elected officials. I'll be reaching out to mayors as well throughout Morris County to try to drum up some support for this effort. And we think it's a net win for everyone. Lastly, for legislation, earlier this week, I attended a press conference hosted by Congresswoman Cheryl introducing the Auto Theft Prevention Act. Coming from DC, having worked on the Hill myself, I know full well that municipalities like ours don't always have the best opportunities to receive federal dollars through the grant process. A lot of times we're at a disadvantage due to formulas or just the sizes of our town. What's good about the Auto Theft Prevention Act, which is introduced in order to help towns like ours fight and prevent auto thefts, which we know are rampant throughout New Jersey. The best part of this bill would be that it requires the federal government to give money to where it's needed most, including towns like ours. So I appreciate Congresswoman Cheryl's introduction of this bill, and I encourage the adoption of it in the House of Representatives, which we all know is probably would take quite a bit of time. And having worked there, I know how long it takes to get bills passed. But kudos to the Congresswoman for doing that and introducing something that will really have a big impact here in Morris Township. Mr. Ravitz talked about pickleball already, so I will do that. And that's all my commentary. So we will now move on to the next agenda item, which is our second and final public commentary for general inquiry. Currently, we have 10 members of the public joining us on Zoom and 1 member here in person. We'll open the meeting to the second public comment portion. Please raise your hand on Zoom if you'd like to speak. When you do speak, please state your name and address for the record before speaking. Please note that comments are limited to 5 minutes per speaker. If you have questions you would like answered, your remaining time to speak will be yielded back for this purpose. May I now have a motion for the second public comment period to be opened?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Mr. O'Reilly.
I was worried. I didn't see where I could unmute before, but now I do. Hello.
Yeah.
It comes on when you call on me. Anyway, I didn't get in at the very beginning of the meeting.
State your full name and address for the record, please.
Yes, James O'Reilly, 50 Independence Way.
Thank you.
I didn't get in on the very beginning of the meeting. So I don't know if you mentioned that there's been a water main break, I think on Columbia Turnpike within Morris Township. And there's been I think a warning not to drink water. Were you aware of that?
Mr. O'Reilly, we're working on that with the water utility. Actually, the break is down in Florham Park in front of the airport, but it's a boil water advisory. We're going to get that out. It should be the water utility is responsible for that, for making the notifications, but it's going to be a fairly wide boil water advisory for the east side of town along Park Avenue out to Madison Avenue.
Yeah, I think we're affected in Liberty Greens.
Yes, you would.
Although Independence Way is not mentioned, I think we're covered by the mention of Punch Bowl.
Okay, so there should be something on the water utility website and our communications website. We're going to also put out a missile message on it once we have the information from the water utility.
Okay, I called them and they expect that they might be through inspection and be able to recover by Friday.
Usually it's a 24 to 48 hour boil water advisory. Once it's done, they have to do testing, and that's the reason that it takes 24 to 48 hours.
And they have to flush the system, right?
Yes, sir. And they get the repair done.
Thank you. Another point. I understand that developers have a right to make a profit by law in New Jersey, and that if they are not satisfied with the zoning they want in a municipality, they can sue. If they win the suit, they control the development, and the municipality loses control of its planning and development. Is that true?
So, Mr. O'Reilly, it's somewhat true. However, we've settled our fair share housing for the last round, so we have an order of compliance. So those are called developer remedy lawsuits, and they're now barred in the Township of Morris based on our settlement agreement. That's why we settle with fair share housing, to avoid those lawsuits.
That's what I thought. This recent event, is that one of the same sort of thing where there was evidently it was denied by, I don't know if it was the planning or the zoning commission, the woman who called in earlier. And now you have decided to accept the settlement with the, and I guess the fear there is that if you don't, you'll have a very adverse outcome.
So it's similar, but it's different. It doesn't have to do with our fair share housing. It just has to do with the developer who is seeking a number of units, which the zoning board did not approve. And we settled for far less units and a less dense project, in addition to some open space for the township. So similar, but also different.
Well, what is a provision of law that allows those developers use?
So any governmental decision that's done by resolution, there's a prerogative writ process which a resident or anyone affected by the can file a complaint in court and say that it was arbitrary or capricious and against the weight of the evidence before the board.
Do you think that
the complaint said that the denial of the application was against the weight of the evidence, basically.
Could the law be amended so as not to give the developers such an upper hand?
So it's state law. It has nothing to do with the township.
Well,
but again,
the township could, if it thought so, recommend an amendment of the state law. I mean, the Mayor Gyorfy just mentioned the legislation committee.
But Ms. Wright, I think it's a very important aspect of our law that allows our residents to challenge governmental actions if they believe that they were wrongful. It's been around for a long time. It's a writ action. So I don't think that we would see a change there. And I don't know that anyone would likely support a change to that law. But you are right. I mean, you could certainly lobby legislatures for a change in statutes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Reilly. Amanda Wilberg. I see your hand raised. You just
Yeah, I got my audio to work now. I couldn't get it to work before. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, my name is Amanda Wilberg, 249 Mount Kemble Ave, Morristown, New Jersey.
Thank you. Go ahead with your comment.
Okay, so Mr. Quinn, I think you brought up a good point about wanting the public to be more informed before when you were speaking. And with that, I have a question about how come we weren't informed that this was going to be, like, we had like a bunch of neighbors who were kind of passing word of mouth, but I didn't get the letter that I had been given in the past when the 257 was going to be discussed. Like in the past, I got no notice that this was going to be discussed. Why is that?
So after we introduce the ordinance, notices will go out before the ordinance is actually heard. So when the zoning change takes effect, those same notices will go out. Tonight's resolution was just to adopt a settlement agreement, but the ordinance itself will be noticed at per usual.
The ordinance will be noticed for 21 days before the public hearing on it, along with being sent out beyond the 200-foot requirement to expand it to 400, if not more.
So this isn't a done deal at the current time. I mean, it's confusing, I think, to me as a member of the public, when you said that this was to go before the board, but it sounds like you accepted the agreement. So I'm kind of confused. Do we have any chance of this not happening, or is this now a done deal?
The ordinance will still have to be introduced, and there'll still have to be a public hearing and a formal adoption of the ordinance, and there'll have to be a publication of the ordinance, and notice will have to be given that it's a zoning change.
And then planning board.
And planning board will also have to review it.
Okay. Okay, so it's not necessarily a done deal yet.
So tonight, the governing body agreed to the terms of the settlement agreement. There's still a few steps to implement, which include introducing the zoning change by ordinance, which is going to happen in November. It'll then be referred to the planning board, and there'll be a hearing in December on that ordinance with a public hearing.
Okay, now if you said the zone is changed, does that mean that all the other like properties that are on Mount Kemble that are about the same size and the same zone and everything like that will also just be automatically changed as well?
I don't know all the zoning in that area, but no, it'll only affect whatever area the ordinance affects.
The zoning will be consistent with the households, the contiguous properties. So they're all RH15, and this would be RH15 zoning.
So, but the other properties that are also on Mount Campbell Ave that are the same as 257, that are currently the same, then it kind of sets a precedent, right? That those will then go forward and be changed as well?
They're already RH15, so they wouldn't need to be changed.
No, there are also other ones that were the same as 257 on Mount Campbell. It's not all RH15s. They were not all RH15s.
I mean, it doesn't set a precedence. I mean, each application will be dealt with, you know, based on the merits of those applications.
Has that ever been done before where a new applicant comes in and says, well, it was done before, so shouldn't you change it for me as well? Has that been done in the past?
You know, I'm unaware because I'm not on the zoning board. So I'm unaware. I mean,
We have done zone changes in the past.
okay.
Okay. And the specifics, is there a reason why you didn't want to put them on the website, like online, that you want us to go to the township? Is it just to make it a little bit more difficult, or why wouldn't they be put on the website for the public?
They're large documents. If you wish them, they can be emailed to you.
Okay, and who do I contact about getting those?
You can contact the clerk's office with an email or an OPA request, and at clerk@morristwp.com. Put in your name and your address and what documents you like, and we'd be happy to provide them to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I see Ms. Memmer has her hand raised.
Good evening, Marlene, 63 Independence Way. I just completed my property tax relief filing, and I was wondering how that is going. Hello?
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I just completed the property tax relief filing, and I noticed that when I did that last year, there was a note on the bottom of the proof of filing that stated that the benefit would be payable either by credit on the future property tax bill, or by check or direct deposit. That is not showing up on the proof this year. Has that changed? Is this going to be a credit that I would see on my future tax bill, or not?
I would check with our tax collector, and I can get back to you on that, Mrs. Member. I was not aware of that concern previously.
Because this year, I did not remember filling out, when I completed the form, it was online. When I completed the form, they asked about either by check or by the direct deposit. I don't recall seeing that last year, but I may have. But I know that last year that when the tax homestead benefit payment came through, it was a credit on the property tax. So I was just wondering how that was going to work for this coming year.
Normally we get that from the state, then it gets applied to your account.
Okay, so I will find out next year how it's going to be applied then. Okay, thank you very much.
I'm going to find out tomorrow for you.
Okay, thank you. Oh, that'd be great. Oh, that'd be great. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The second thing I have is I noticed on the consent calendar that we have certain activities at St. Virgil's Church in Morris Plains. I was just wondering why it appeared on our consent calendar.
Because it's not in Morris Plains, it's in Morris Township.
Oh, St. Virgil's is in Morris Township. Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, that was it for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Memmer. Mr. Kabasakalian.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. David Kaplan-Sakalian, 229 Martin Luther King Avenue, Morristown. I'm a little bit concerned about the speeding on Martin Luther King lately. It's gotten worse. When I leave at 7 o'clock, there's a lot of speeding, and coming home after work, there's a lot of speeding at night. Can we have something done about this?
Yeah, we absolutely can. We can work with our police department on it. I believe we worked with you maybe a year or two ago on it too. And so we can certainly talk to the police chief and the speeding unit, transportation unit to see if they have any recommendations. Traffic safety unit.
All right, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Goldberg.
Lee Goldberg, 10 Arrowhead Road.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Mr. Cantor, I just want to go back to a comment you made earlier, because I believe the more there's talk about the 257 Mount Kemble settlement agreement, I think maybe things are becoming clear in my mind, but I just want to validate them with you. Did I hear you say that the township is no longer susceptible to builder remedy lawsuits at this point in time?
My understanding is we've settled our fair share housing litigation for this round, and part of what you get out of a settlement is an order of compliance, which bars builder remedies lawsuits until the next round.
And that next round, which I guess is scheduled for 2025, if I think I'm accurate on that, is when the next round sort of takes place. So I'm going back to Mayor Gyorfy's comments as to why he was in support of this settlement agreement. I believe he indicated that it was the best realistic alternative at this point. And I guess my question is, realistic alternative to what? And then, and so also another reason that Mayor Gyorfy was supporting this was to prevent further development down the road. So would it be correct in assuming that the Township Committee is perhaps looking past 2025 to the next round and concerned that there might be a builder's remedy lawsuit and end up with, perhaps 100 units placed on that tract? Or so is this really a decision? I guess my question is this a decision proactively based on fear of the future of what might be, and taking action now to enable one developer to basically, make some money on this tract while also protecting us for the future? Would that be a fair assumption on my part, or an accurate one?
No, Mr. Goldberg. I think the mayor, and I don't want to speak for the mayor, but I think he was referring to the 11 units that were sought by this current developer and the litigation that would seek to put those 11 units on this property, which is much denser than the 4 single-family homes which we agreed to. I don't think any comment had to do with any future round or any fair share housing obligation.
Can I ask that question, Mr. Gyorfy? Is that an accurate representation?
That is accurate, Mr. Goldberg.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Ms. Pitt is still on the line. When she was commenting earlier, she had said something about tax dollars being used in the parking lot, and she was reassured that the developer was paying for the parking lot. But just for the record, I mean, based on the settlement agreement, it looks like roughly 170, maybe it was 175,000 open space tax dollars will be used to acquire the land from the developer. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. And to Ms. Wilbur's point of, I guess I sort of call it the floodgates effect. One of the concerns that the zoning board did take into account in denying the application was perhaps some of the precedent that this would set along the Mount Kemble corridor. This particular applicant, who is also the developer and the applicant are one and the same. His testimony was that he purchased this tract of land with the intention of building a single family home on it. And when his wife saw how steep the slope was, his testimony was there was no way she was going to allow her kids to walk down that track to get to the school bus, and refused to live there. At which point he said, well, what can I do with the property? well, I could put 11 townhomes on it. I could go to the town. I could, become a developer and maybe make a bag of money on this. And when he didn't get the result, I guess, that he was hoping for, threatened lawsuit. I think the zoning board, when we denied both the original application and the proposed settlement agreement, which is very similar to the one you're touting and approving now, our thought processes was to, see in court and let's see how this all resolves. When Mr. Ravitz says that this is a good deal for all residents of the township, I beg to differ, and I'm sure there's many people in the Mount Kemble corridor who would differ with that assertion as well. So thank you for allowing me my time to just share some thoughts and my thought processes on this. Thanks for answering my questions this evening. Helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Goldberg. Appreciate your time. I see Kathleen has her hand raised. As we'll go with her.
Yes, thank you, Kathleen Pitt, 206 Mount Kimball Avenue. And yeah, I'm going to just reiterate what Lee Goldberg had said, which is my neighbor across the street's sons are not allowed to drive the car down their driveway in the winter. They cannot do it. They can drive any other time. They cannot drive the car down the driveway. Her husband is the one that crashed the car and crashed into the wall twice. So to say that this lawsuit, I'd like to see a copy of the lawsuit. I'm sure that's probably within our rights. We'd like to see a copy of the lawsuit. To say that you agree to this because it was capricious is just really silly. And I think everybody on the board knows that. Like, I don't really know what's going on. And let's go back to the $175,000 of our tax dollars. And this guy, why is he doing us a favor? We're buying $175,000 from him, and he's getting his way to put in 4 houses. How does this make sense? I mean, nobody can put their head around it. Like, what are you guys doing? You're elected officials. Like, what the hell?
We provided our explanation earlier. I think the explanation would be the same right now. Our open space tax dollars are there for this exact reason, to purchase open space, and that's part of the settlement agreement.
Okay, well, we would like to see the lawsuit. We would like to see what the hell this guy is saying. We're capricious. I mean, are people throwing eggs at his house? Like, give me a break. What's going on? How did this get through? What?
Miss, if you either send an email or an Oprah request to clerk@morristwp.com, we'd be happy to provide you with a copy of the lawsuit.
Okay, this is just absolutely absurd. This is just absurd. We're paying $175,000 and we're letting the guy build 4 houses where the slope is so ridiculously dangerous that my neighbor won't let her kids drive down the driveway. I mean, come on, guys. You don't live on Mount Kimball. You have no idea what you're doing. That's the only thing I can think of. The builder's wife won't even live on it. Like, what are you doing? What are you thinking? Answer. I need an answer. What are you thinking? The builder's wife won't live on Mount Kimball, and the people that live on the street won't let their kids drive down the driveway. And you guys are saying it's the best interest of the time.
Why they supported the resolution. We will be having public hearing and further public testimony in the coming months. We will be providing 21-day notice to the neighbors near this property, extending to at least 400 feet, probably further down the road. And we will continue to hear public comment and testimony.
Tad, do you want to try to talk? I have Tad on the line here. Tad.
I think right now is your time. We will be moving down the line for the next public comment.
He can't get in, so I'm...
He's in. We see Alan McAlpin on the list.
Oh, Alan, you can get in now.
Okay.
Okay, so why don't we go with the account that he's on so we can have proper audio. Okay,
Hey,
Mr. McAlpin.
Yes,
full name and address.
My name is Alan McAlpin, 5 Armstrong Road. With regard to 257 Mount Kemble Avenue, it seems to me that you're changing the zoning laws. I have to wonder if the near neighbors who are going to be financially hurt by this wouldn't have reason to seek retribution in amounts that are equal to their property damage as a result. When they bought this, it was an OSGU right next to them. Now, if you go and change that, it seems to me, they have some opportunity for action against the township. I mean, what are our zoning laws for? They're for protection of the people who live in the area, and this seems to go against some of the basic principles we're told to believe about zoning and the reason for zoning, and that zoning, the purpose for zoning. This seems to go contrary, particularly in the face of 2 judgments by the Board of Adjustments against just this thing. And it would be interesting to me to see how this turns out, because the local neighbors who are going to be adversely affected by this may have recourse. And I certainly will encourage them to do that if this were to proceed. Please, I can't believe that in the face of 2 judgments by the Board of Adjustment, that the agreement by the township, not by the Board of Adjustment, it's my understanding, by the township to this is nothing more than an encouragement for others, builders who don't get their way. And I would think all you're doing is opening the door to a lot of litigation for builders who don't get what they want when they apply for an application. That's my opinion, and I would love to have someone on respond to what I'm saying. This is outrageous.
Do you want to talk about developers' loss?
I mean,
the explanation has been given by all the governing bodies. Jared, I don't know if you have anything further to say.
I mean, Mayor, I don't really have anything further to add than what I've already commented on. I mean, I'm happy to address any issues that the mayor or the board wants me to. I just don't really have anything different to add to that comment.
Okay, Mr. McAlpin, do you have any further comments?
No, except that there's a lot of distressed neighbors.
Okay, well, we will be providing greater than adequate notice ahead of the public hearing in December. We'll be going beyond the 10-day requirement to 21 days, and we'll be going beyond the distance requirement as well to make sure everyone in the area is able to participate and has adequate notice to prepare ahead of time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Julie Winter. Barely. Do you have a headphone in or something? We're not able to hear you very well.
Well, hold on. Can you hear me this way? Hello?
No, it's like it's very muffled.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Julie, we just really, the audio is not great. We can barely hear you. We can try, and then if not, we can, we can give you a call back tomorrow if you want to talk, but the audio is not great right now.
Okay. Well, I noticed that the property is right next to a whole string of open space, and if the township is interested in open space, why aren't we purchasing the entire property? I was shocked to find out that this rezoning deal included us purchasing open space.
Did you get that?
Yeah. If we could buy the entire 5 acres, I think we would. We were given the opportunity to purchase 3 acres. It'll give us the opportunity to build a trailhead there and connect to the Jockey Hollow Top Reserve, which goes up the Mount Kimball Mountain all the way up to Rolling Hill Drive and to the south. So It's a nice amenity that gives all of our residents access to all of that open space property. So we're going to get 3 acres of it. If we were able to get 5, I'm sure we would, but unfortunately we can only
I don't,
3.
I don't understand why we are rezoning, and I'm looking
Because the
at
owner isn't willing to sell it to us.
Okay, well,
We can't
Okay,
force
but then
force the
I
property
don't-
owner to sell their land to us, unfortunately.
okay, if he doesn't want to sell to us, that's fine. I don't understand why we have to rezone for him. I'm looking at a trail map on Township site, and we do have access from Frederick Place across the street to all that open space.
That was an horrible comment.
I think this would provide access to the trailhead and will provide parking spots for folks who would like to use the trail as opposed to.
Let's add the parking at across the street from Frederick. There's other places you could add parking without even buying additional open space. And I'm all for open space, believe me. But I feel we're being bullied by this developer. In fact, we can build even just north of Harder Road. Looking at the map, you could build parking. You don't have to do it on his property.
Okay. Do you have any further comments?
No, that's it.
Thank you very much.
Mayor, could I ask a couple of questions?
In regards to what, Ms. Wilson?
I just want to
Actually,
add,
I'm sorry. First, Ms. Wilson, can I have a motion to close the public portion, please? Seeing no further hands raised.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Ms. Wilson, go ahead.
so the one question I have is, I'm sure the public will be interested in certain documents, like, for example, the lawsuit that the applicant filed. Can that be posted so people, can that just be posted on our website, and the settlement agreement? Can certain documents that are of interest to the public be posted, or is it necessary for the public to file Oprahs to
I
obtain?
don't think we can treat this lawsuit any differently than other ones. So we would have to provide it in the same manner we do for other public documents dealing with litigation.
It would be an Oprah request, Mrs. Wilson.
So what the public can get based on tonight's meeting is the text of the resolutions, but the resolution that deals with the 257 Mount Kimball, if they want the referenced settlement agreement, they have to request an Oprah request for that, right?
Yes, please. And that's similar past practice of the way we handle all of the agreements that are attached to resolutions.
Okay. And one other point, just for the benefit of the public, the ordinance will be introduced at the November meeting, and the notifications to the public will go out after the first read of the ordinance, correct?
Correct. The notification will go at least 21 days before the public hearing, which will be in December. So you can't have a public hearing until the ordinance is in fact introduced, which will happen in November. The public hearing will be at the December meeting.
And the people who live within at least 200 feet, probably 400 feet, will be getting certified letters notifying them of the public hearing in December?
The residents within 200 feet will get a certified letter. The other residents will get a regular mailed letter.
Ah, okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. With no further agenda items, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The next
Aye.
Township Committee meeting will be held on Wednesday, November 9th, 2022 at 7 p.m. in person and via Zoom, with closed session at 5 p.m. It is now 8:29 p.m. We are adjourning the meeting. Thank you very much.
Good night, everybody.
Thanks. Good night.